Did you ever go to counseling with Kody and Robyn to try to fix anything?
Like, no, I don't like them.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All these things how you feel. I think it's going to be so much easier for you just to move on and get past everything and really release.
I remember like these first couple of years, I'm like, I don't even want to think about it. And now I'm kind of like, okay, what do I need to do here to like finally really put this, like end this like completely? I just need to make sure all the little pieces are in place.
Hi besties, welcome back to my channel. Janelle Brown's about to go on a mission to get herself released from Kody Brown. Now, the irony of this is that Janelle is going to go to leaders at the Church of the Apostolic United Brethren, while at the same time, the leader who is going to give her a release is currently embroiled in a lawsuit with his ex-spiritual wife, who claims she's been seeking a release from him for decades and is fighting him over property she claims he's stolen from her. So Janelle is going to be released from the prophet who refuses to release his own wife. We'll dive into that. And Janelle prepares for Kody to return into her life, which gets a warning from her daughter Maddie, who reminds her that perhaps Kody is only showing up to cause chaos once again in her life. Kody has impeccable timing when it comes to Janelle, and he has spent years and years and years finding ways to lure her back in. Now, Kody today says that he has zero interest in being in polygamy. He claims that he is totally done and would never consider it again. And in this episode, he decides he's going to apologize to all of the women to set them free, even though they've already been set free. I think Kody's doing this for a storyline, for damage control and ego, and also to save his marriage with his wife, Robyn. But Janelle and her friends spoke about how she's ready to have and take the next step for the spiritual release.
My mom came to save me from the polygamist because no daughter of hers was going to marry into some crazy cult. And she ended up marrying Kody's dad, and they actually got married months before we did. When they decided to get married, I was like, that's going to be a little hard to explain, but all right. It was a little weird at first, but I'm like, okay, it's great. Like, somebody's here with me, I guess, you know. A lot of my family did not understand my choices. They were hesitant to still remain in contact with me just because they thought I'd gone off the deep end.
I love how Janelle's family, her extended family, is always framed like they're crazy because they cared about their loved one, Janelle, not getting involved in a dangerous cult, and they were concerned about her safety. Well, why would they have been concerned? Because I can tell you, let's do a history lesson. Janelle and Adam Barber, they got together in 1988. This was a time period of considerable violence in the polygamous sects in Utah and across the Western United States. In 1978, the leader of the Apostolic United Brethren was pew-pewed and his life was ended at the hands of a spiritual wife, two spiritual wives of a quote-unquote prophet named Orville LeBaron. Orville LeBaron from Mexico and a church founded by his brother. He split off from his brother Joel, and he decided that he was going to get rid of all of the men that were claiming to be the prophets who he believed were not the prophets, and he was going to atone for them with blood. Because in his belief and in the fundamentalism, there are some sins that have not been atoned through the death of Jesus Christ. And in their faith, they are given the righteous permission to cause another's life to be lost if they believe they've committed a grievous sin that cannot be atoned by Jesus. So Mr. Orville decided he was going to go on a warpath and he was going to get rid of all the prophets. And during his lifespan, he took out his brother Joel. One of his other brothers mysteriously died in a car accident. He took out Rulon Allred. He was eventually convicted when it came to Rulon Allred. And he and his wives that took out Rulon were later acquitted. It's a whole crazy story. But he died in prison, okay? So Orville dies in prison, and then he has this group of followers, by the way, who find his writings and teachings, and then they ascribe to these writings and teachings, And Ervil had created like a list of all of these people that he had on his hit list. And so these followers that were going off of his radical teachings, and Ervil was like this crazy writer, and he would be up all night. I interviewed his daughters, Anna and Celia LeBaron, a couple years ago, and they spoke about, their experiences with their dad, who they didn't really know that well, but they spoke about how much he wrote, and they spoke about these texts that he wrote and how these younger siblings of theirs and younger people that were followers of his took it upon themselves to commit these acts for him, even after Ervil had died. So Janelle was getting involved in a community that was already at the center of serious violence related to these wars between the factions, okay? And it was increased and amplified in June of 1988 in Texas. And this is when followers of Ervil made a decision to go ahead and finish his list for his hit list and take out the people that Ervil believed needed to be taken out. And so they went to various sites, and it was all at 4:00 in the afternoon. And the victims were former members of his sect who had defected, and they were targeted under the doctrine of blood atonement. Okay. And so Marth Chenoweth was shot 3 times in Houston. Dwayne Chenoweth and his daughter Jenny were killed at another location in Houston. And the daughter was harmed because she was there when her father was taken out. And then Ed Marston, who was at a business in a suburb of Dallas, and he was also died hours later. So this is the height of sect on sect and sect on inner fighting within sects violence. At the same time of this is happening, within the Allred group, Rulon Allred had been killed in 1978. Owen Allred had taken over, and at the period of time that Janelle decided to join, it was exposed in the church that there were leaders in the church that were using a doctrine where they believed they were descendants of Jesus, and they believed their bloodline needed to remain pure. And so in order to remain pure, some of these men were having relations with their daughters. And it's not relations, it's SA. There was also another leader who was found to be using medical practices to SA both men and women through the use of colonics, and multiple men in the Brethren were accused, which resulted in a mass exodus of people leaving the AUB in the late 80s, in the 90s, and into the 2000s. In the late 90s, in Utah, a man was at the Bluffdale church when someone walked into the church and slit the guy's throat, and it was another blood atonement. That happened at the church that Miss Janelle attended. Not long after Janelle joined the AUB, one of the brethren, Gustavo Palacios, was arrested for essaying his stepdaughters because of that weird doctrine, and it was pervasive and severe. And then his wife, who happens to be Christine Brown's first cousin, was also arrested for assisting in it and allowing it to happen. And also, in the same period that all of this is happening, a woman named Virginia Hill sues the Apostolic United Brethren for stealing more than $1 million of her and embezzling it and using it to buy property, which is still owned by the cult today. And Owen Allred was implicated in all of that. So there was reasonable fears for her family, and they likely cut her off for their own fear of their own safety, but also because they believed it, the church, the LDS church, is fully against polygamy. So I just want to make sure that that part is clear, so you know that her family isn't evil for like cutting her off. These groups are highly dangerous, and they're highly manipulative and coercive, and in the past have kidnapped people. So they want her out, but she's not going to get out. And she still kind of defends being in there to this day. But at least now she's discussing leaving.
I think I went in so idealistic thinking, oh, this is going to be awesome, And the conflict started like almost immediately. And I thought, okay, this is very different than what I thought it was going to be. There was never like an exit plan. I was committed to my faith, and I'm like, yep, I'm going to figure this out.
I wanted to share that with you just to say that sometimes when people convert to these cults, they become more diehard and resolute in their beliefs because they've chosen these beliefs versus the kids that grow up in it and become polygamous afterwards, or grow up in it and realize it's a lie and then they leave. But if someone's being recruited and converts, and then they give up all these things in their life, like their family, in order to join, and they think they're on like this righteous path and only they're going to get into heaven, it made her willing to like let down her guardrails apparently and ignore the red flags, even though there was like abuse and conflicts from the beginning. And I would say when she says conflicts, I would liken it to abuse, because what was happening between her and Mary was abusive. What was happening between her and Kody was abusive. So she was a true believer at that point. But she also discusses how now she's in a place where she would like to get a release, and she's only considered this after learning about it from Mary.
Would you ever go to counseling with Kody and Robyn to try to fix anything?
Like, no, I don't like them.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Why? There's no point of that. No, why would I need to do that? What do I need to do here to like finally really put this, like, end this, like, completely? Obviously, there's no legal marriage. And so there's no legal divorce. Like, you don't have to get a divorce. But a spiritual release is essentially being released from the spiritual covenant you made to be married.
So what her friends are basically doing in this conversation that we're not seeing and you're not hearing, but I'll tell you what they're talking to her about, is they're trying to get her to move on. And Janelle still is stuck in this mindset that she's with Kody because of this spiritual relationship that she has with him. Because when she was married to him in the temple, in the EUB temple, they were given this blessing which connected them for time and all eternity. And that means that in the afterlife, she and Kody are still together. And through the teachings, the women, if they are abandoned or separate from their husbands, they are taught that the only way to get to heaven, even if they separate, is to stay celibate and to stay like faithful, even though their husband's gone, to their husband, so that they go to the celestial kingdom. And what she's admitting here is that she still feels like she's his wife, and that she can't be with anyone else until she feels like that relationship has been cut. So her next step is she's going to go get a spiritual release in order to sever that, because she says in another clip that she doesn't, if she dies and it turns out that her religion is true, she doesn't want to be stuck in heaven and married to Kody still. She wants to be free from him.
I just need to make sure all the little pieces are in place. But now I'm like, I think it's time to kind of really cut all those ties with Kody. So it's become more of a thing in my brain now. Like I said, I want to cut that final tie, whether I imagine that it's there or I feel that it's there, whatever. I just maybe need to make sure and cut all the ties. So what if my religion is right and I wake up and I'm in heaven and I'm married to him? I'm like, oh hell, I'm not having that happen. Do you know what I mean?
It's interesting because nobody else on the show, other than maybe Robyn, refers to it as their religion anymore. Kody says he doesn't believe it anymore. Mary in this episode is incredibly clear that she has zero belief in the system. She said she would never do polygamy again. She doesn't believe in the faith. She even said, I don't know if I'll go to heaven. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but I'm not going to like live a faith that tells me I have to do this that I don't believe in. So Mary doesn't believe it at all. She doesn't even refer to it as like her faith anymore. Christine doesn't refer to it as her faith. Janelle still does. She calls it my religion. So she's still holding on to that component, and it'll take a long time for her to shed that. And if she ever sheds it, I don't know. But she did get the release, and Kody actually exposed this a couple weeks ago or a week or so ago on Nick Vial's podcast. And he said that, 2 of his wives got releases. So Janelle did get this release. Now, in order to get the release, she had to go to the brethren and request a release, and it's the prophet that releases them spiritually. Well, that prophet is Dave Watson. Dave Watson is currently being sued by one of his plural wives, who is currently suing him over property that she owns with him that he claims she has no vested interest in. She claims that he abandoned her, and He locked her out of her property. He would leave her for weeks at a time, spend all of his time with his favorite wife, not contribute to the family. She claims she opened a natural food store and all of the money went to Dave. She claims she helped him at his other business and all of the money went to Dave. She has said that she, in her lawsuit, has been trying to get a release from him for years and he refuses to grant her a release. And her story, I've spoken about it here. I interviewed one of her daughters, Emily, who spoke about her experience. They've also accused Dave of child abuse and physical abuse of his wives. And so, in order for Janelle to get the release, which she's received, she got it from a man that's doing the exact same thing to his wife, Sherilyn, and other wives to this day. Dave claims he has 8 wives, but he doesn't. He does not have 8 wives. Like 3 of them have left, if not 4. One is there, but she doesn't want to be there. She just wants to be out and he won't let her go. And so it's just ironic, right? That like she's going back to a cult whose own prophet has a wife suing him for basically doing to his wife what Kody had been doing to her for years. I wish that like there was an easy way to take the blinders off, right? For these women so they could see the truth. But the indoctrination and the manipulation is so thick and it's so coercive and it's so like constant and it taps into their whole faith-based system of like what they will get in the afterlife. And it plays into so many of their insecurities and into their salvation. And it also tells them that they will be gods and goddesses. So it creates this like level of like, you're going to be the most righteous in the world. And so that to give that up is a lot, but you know, over and over and over, like Janelle has all of these signs saying she's a smart woman and yet continues to not always make the smartest decisions. She's gotten the release now, so let's just hope she stays out of it for good, right? And she just settles in North Carolina and she just moves on with her life and keeps moving forward because her family members tried to help her years ago and she disconnected and now she's released and gets a release from a guy that's worse than Kody. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.